Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the show. So, I want to give you an update on this Texas flood. I also want to walk you through the timeline on why I think this could have been prevented in many ways, at least many of the casualties. And I think I'm going to do a 72-hour bug out bag build for both YouTube on this channel and then on my Patreon, do a detailed breakout of what I included in that and why. I think it's important to talk about these things because natural catastrophes happen all over the world around us. And until we're impacted or somebody we know or love is impacted, we really don't pay attention. I mean, if you were to say that a flash flood was going to take a river from 1 foot, the estimates are 1 to 6 feet, to 30 feet in 1 hour, you would say I'm crazy. But that just happened. With 89 people that have died, a lot of the casualties came out of Camp Mystic, an all-girls summer camp that sits along the Guadalupe River. Many of these people that were killed and that are still missing by the dozens, I mean, we're still missing dozens of people, is because they were parked in RV campers, they were in houses like Airbnbs, or they were in summer camps, including Mystic, which is a non-denominational Christian camp that had 700 plus girls at the time. Right now, 10 campers and 1 counselor are still missing, and 27 campers and counselors were killed. Dozens of little girls. A horrific nightmare for parents and the victims. So let's go over the timeline. Let's talk about how this happened in the lead up and go through it. All right, so let me populate this. This is Wednesday, July 2nd. According to the Texas Division of Emergency Management, TDEM, they announced that it was activating state emergency response resources because of the threat of flooding. This is Wednesday, guys. This is July 2nd. At 4:41 p.m., early hints of severe weather came in a post on X by the National Weather Service near Austin and San Antonio that said scattered moderate to heavy showers continue to develop and expand to the hill country. All right, that's Wednesday. This took place on July 4th. So 2 days prior, they're putting this out on a post on X in the timeline. Now, guys, look at this tweet right here. This is the actual tweet that was disseminated to everybody via NWS, Austin, San Antonio. It says 3:35 p.m. radar update, scattered moderate to heavy showers continue to develop and expand. 281 and I-35 heavy downpours could reduce visibility in addition of producing wind gusts of 25 to 35 miles an hour. Now, this is just me, and I'm not criticizing any victims here because people decided to do things the way they wanted to do them. But if I'm looking at camping in an RV park next to a river and I see there's 25 to 35 mile an hour winds, we're not doing that. It's not going to happen. So this is on July 2nd. This is on Wednesday. This is in anticipation or lead up to the 4th of July. People are out there celebrating Independence Day, and they're getting into campsites, getting ready for the festivities. Except on July 2nd at 2:41 p.m., they put it out, and you could see the radar here. It's not looking good. It actually looks really bad. That's not weather that I'm going to hang out in an RV park at all, period. All right, let's go off into Thursday, July 3rd. At 9:47 a.m., the Texas Division of Emergency Management posted on X weather guidance in both English and Spanish, informing followers about what to do in a flood, adding, as we head into the holiday weekend and the flood threat in West and Central Texas continues, stay weather aware. Guys, Texas is like concrete. I mean, everything is rugged in its terrain, and it doesn't absorb water, which is why the water levels can increase when you have 12 inches of rain accumulating in one spot in a 1 hour period. That's what takes the Guadalupe from 1 to 6 feet to 25 plus feet in a matter of hours. That's how it works. There's no place for the water to absorb. Now, I asked the question, I'm no hydrologist or anything, but I asked the question, like, why doesn't the infrastructure, the reservoirs, have ways to divert the water versus one straight river path that has killed people in the past? Let me pull up this article real quick and digress for a second. Now, here's a picture from July 16th, 1987, when in the early morning of the 17th, thunderstorms developed and moved slowly eastward through hill country. The storms produced a train effect, one following another, and a large area got 5 to 10 inches of rain that fell in the upper headwaters of the Guadalupe River Basin. This triggered a mid-level interacting with a weak cold front and copious amounts of moisture from the Gulf of America. As much as 11.5 inches of rain occurred 9 miles west of Hunt, Texas, which is right in the central component of this entire event. This resulted in a massive flood wave that traveled down the Guadalupe River. In that, it rose 29 feet that morning and crested at 31.5 feet, killing 10 teenagers and injuring 33 others. Now, why would they not change the infrastructure based on this threat? Well, it's a once-in-a-generation kind of event, but we should have been paying attention. At 9:47 a.m., Texas Division of Emergency Management posted on X guidance in both English and Spanish. At some point, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick later said at a press conference that the chief had personally contacted judges and mayors in that area and notified them all of the potential flooding. He said it was unclear exactly where in the region this storm would hit. The message was sent, Patrick said, it's up to the local counties and mayors under the law to evacuate if they feel a need. That information was passed along. At 3:35 p.m., this is the afternoon of the 3rd, the National Weather Service, Austin, San Antonio, announced a flood watch on X, saying pockets of heavy rain are expected and may result in flooding. A flood watch is used when the weather conditions make a flood possible, but it doesn't mean a flood will occur. That's a clear delineation between maybe versus it's going to happen. All right, guys, so here's an illustration of flood warning versus watch directly from the National Weather Service's website. See at the bottom, it says a flash flood warning, take action. An advisory means be aware, and a watch means be prepared. So if they're putting out a watch, which this was, they disseminated, be prepared. A flood watch is issued when conditions are favorable for a specific hazardous weather event to occur. A flood watch is issued when conditions are favorable for flooding, but it does not mean flooding will occur, but it is possible. So my question would be, what in preparation did that county or the surrounding counties do when they were warned by the National Weather Service? Now we get into the meat and potatoes. This is Friday, July 4th at 12:42 a.m. Now this is part of the issue. 12:42 a.m. So everybody's sleeping, right? This is 12:42 a.m. The National Weather Service, Austin, San Antonio, posted on X, upgrading its flood watch to a flood warning for part of the impacted area in a post from 2:14 a.m. Let's look at that post. This is the actual post from X. It says flash flood warning including Ingram and Hunt, Texas until 4:15 a.m. You look at the bottom, it was issued at 12:14 a.m. That's one of the problems with these systems. They're disseminating the information on X, which is a great way to disseminate information. But how is somebody in an RV camper parked along the Guadalupe River that might not have cell phone reception because of the storm supposed to be warned or notified? That's a big question. Now, going back to the Weather Service's definition of warning, so a flood warning was issued until 4:15 a.m., but it was issued at 12:14 a.m. Warning, according to the National Weather Service, means take action. A flash flood warning is issued when a flash flood is imminent or occurring. If you're in a flood-prone area, move immediately to high ground. A flash flood is a sudden, violent flood that can take from minutes to hours to develop. It is even possible to experience a flash flood in areas not immediately receiving rain. Flash flood warnings are changing to an impact-based format to improve public response. All right, so just let me clarify for you guys. At 12:14, the National Weather Service, Austin, San Antonio, issues what I just read to you, a flash flood warning, which means it's imminent. It's going to happen. Now, the problem is at 12:14 a.m., mostly everybody's sleeping. So if you're following protocols based on the system, it's saying take action immediately. Now, if there's no warning systems or elements external to this, would you know that a flash flood warning means you need to move now to high ground? Now, what's similar is you would think that if there's an imminent danger, for example, in a tornado, there would be an outdoor warning siren to alert the public about tornadoes. There are no national or state mandates requiring their use. The decision to implement and activate sirens is typically made at the local, county, or city level. I say this because I think about like an incoming attack, an indirect incoming attack. If I know there's an incoming missile, mortar, it is imminent that we're going to be attacked. I think as a tangible warning signal, why wouldn't you have a siren? Why wouldn't you have a mass text disseminated like you would in an Amber Alert? Why would you not have this? To allow people to know that are in the area, they need to seek the high ground now, according to their own recommendations. And I think that's the problem. If you're sleeping, your cell phone's on silent, and you are able to get through to people like an Amber Alert to announce a warning, well, that broadcast is necessary to tell people physically what to do. And it shouldn't say flash flood warning. A lot of people don't necessarily know what that means. But if you tell them in an alarm and use plain English, seek the high ground now. If you're receiving this message, you're in a floodplain area, seek the high ground now, then it wouldn't be open to interpretation. And that's where you see a lot of the mistakes being made, a lot of the errors being made in this particular case. So back to the timeline here, it says at 1:26 a.m., the National Weather Service Weather Prediction Center said flash flooding likely overnight with significant impacts possible. Around 3:30 a.m., Kerrville City Manager Dalton Rice said he was out for an early morning jog along the Guadalupe River and saw not a drop of rain. Rice added that he left around 4 a.m. when there was very light rain. We did not see any signs of the river rising at that time. At 4:06 a.m., the National Weather Service on X said a very dangerous flash flooding event is ongoing. It ended. Turn around. Don't drown. 4:06 a.m. No one's awake at 4:06 a.m. except for Jocko and this town city manager. Then at 5:15 a.m., the National Weather Service issued a post on X that said there was a flash flood emergency. The Austin San Antonio office posted on X. And here we go. Here's the actual tweet. It says a swath of 5 to 10 inches of rain have been estimated the last 3 to 6 hours across the south central Kerr County. This is a particularly dangerous situation, and a flash flood emergency is in effect. Now, if you see this imagery and you see this flash flood emergency through 7 a.m., that's the radar estimated rainfall in the last 6 hours. So the guesstimation is it was about 12 inches in about 1 hour that fell. So it went from watch to warning to imminent danger and a flash flood emergency as they outlined it. So the last part of this is the fact that this type of alert is extremely rare, exceedingly rare, and used only when there is a severe threat to human life and catastrophic damage, according to the National Weather Service. Kerrville City Manager Rice said he started getting calls around 5 a.m. post his run about the flooding. He said upstream of the city, 2 branches coverage into the Guadalupe River, and that both forks had received more rain than expected. It was about 7 feet or so on the South Fork, and within a matter of minutes, it went up to 29 feet. So 7 feet to 29 feet in a matter of minutes. Now, they did say after the 1987 floods, there were alarms that were installed along the river. However, Rice said that he believes those are south of Kerrville. They are not alarms everywhere along the river. He added that in a very hard decision when to issue evacuation orders, there's a balance between do you evacuate and put chaos on the road and potentially risk people getting stuck on the road. This is hill country, he says. There's a lot of low water crossings, a lot of operational plans, especially with these camps. That is, the plan is sometimes shelter in place to get them to those high grounds and then wait for rescue. Wow. So about this time, this is early in the morning, 6 in the morning, all hell breaks loose. Let's go ahead and roll this film. All right, that takes us to July 5th to Saturday, and by then it's already too late. They're getting more officials on the ground. They're doing rescues. I think by the second day they had 850 rescues, and all the resources were moved into the area to start rescuing and recovering victims. Now, I want to run this story for you guys because I think it's important to talk about situations like this, not to criticize anybody who was a victim, but to demonstrate to you guys that this kind of stuff happens and how important it is for you to train the basics. Let's go ahead and roll it.
Julian had just come home from work when water broke through their trailer. He lifted his 13-month-old and 6-year-old onto floating mattresses. When the door wouldn't open, he shattered a window. The glass sliced his arm so deep it nearly came off. As he bled, he stayed calm telling his family he wouldn't make it, then said faintly, "I love you," and died in his mother's arms.
Very tragic circumstance. The reality is he broke the window and cut his arm and his wrist, and he ended up bleeding to death. Now, I saw the comments in some of the YouTube videos that I thought were appropriate. I'm not armchair quarterbacking the fact that he punched a window to get his family out and rescue them. I would do the same thing. Stopping the bleed via an extremity is very easy. So if you are bleeding for a period of time, and you have a severed artery, which is the highway for blood in your system, it could be a wrist. It's very easy to bleed out via an arterial bleed. You don't have to have a brachial or femoral bleed in order to bleed out. It could be from veins in your arm. The same way that you stop the bleed via a major injury, a catastrophic bleed on any extremity, is the same way that you stop the bleed further down on your arm. And in this case, I would recommend high and tight, right, around the deltoid, the bi, and the tri, and applying a tourniquet. I will add, free for everybody, on patreon.com/Mike Glover, which I'll link down below, a small demonstration in class on how to stop the bleed. It's very important that everybody understand how to do this. Guys, these things aren't difficult, and I think if this family knew how to stop the bleed, or anybody around him knew how to stop the bleed, this guy would be a hero, which he is. He saved his entire family, but he would still be alive. Not criticizing his family or him because they were handed the circumstances and he did the best he could, but we need to train on these basics. In conclusion, this is a tough situation for anybody. This is a once-in-a-generation flood. We know it is because the last time it happened is in 1987. But there are lessons we can learn in real time. A lot of people need your prayers, especially the victims of this circumstance. It's very difficult, especially involving children. So please pray for the victims. Also, I will link down in the description the vetted sources where you could donate money and donate material support, including addresses where you could send it. Guys, I appreciate you. I'm headed off to the underground to do some education. Until next time, peace out, guys.